What's up guys, how you doing? Welcome to another video, and today we're talking all about Adobe Lightroom. More specifically, we're talking about shortcuts that I think are going to save you a ton of time when you're editing. Shortcuts that I use all the time myself when I'm editing my photos. I've shared some of these before, but nonetheless, they're shortcuts which will save you a ton of time when you're doing your editing. I thought they'd be really useful, so I wanted to share them with you today. If you guys like the idea of that and you think it will be useful, do me a favor, hit that like button because it helps me out loads and loads on my channel and I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Loads of other videos to come on my channel that I think you might enjoy. So when it comes to Adobe Lightroom, there are a whole host of keyboard shortcuts that you can use. In fact, there are loads and loads of them. So to help you out, below I have linked to the official Adobe guide for keyboard shortcuts. There are loads of them in there, all the different modules have them. It's actually crazy how many shortcuts there are, and I think loads of people don't even really realize they're there, or maybe they might know how to do something like click into a development module, go to a crop tool, set it up, get your crop how you want it, hit the done button, and perhaps they don't realize that by using keyboard shortcuts you can do that in like 2 clicks and save yourself a ton of time. So in a second we're going to jump round, go into Lightroom, and I'm going to show you some of those shortcuts. Before we do, I just wanted to share one other thing which for me kind of is a shortcut. It's not a keyboard shortcut or anything like that, but it's something which I think saves you a ton of time in the long run, and that is organizing your photos properly before you import them into Lightroom. The temptation is always there when we're getting home from an event and we want to upload our photos just to plug the memory card in and import the photos straight from the memory card. Now don't get me wrong, in some live sports events you might do that. You might ingest straight into Photo Mechanic, for example, but if you've got the time and you're sat there after an event, do it properly, and here's my advice on how I would do it. So the first thing I would do is I would bring the photos, all of the photos from the memory cards into my folder system. Now my folder system is fairly simple. Here's an example of how it works. You have the main folder where I would then list within my sports section all the different sports that I shoot, and you can see a few of them here. Of course there are others too, but these are some of the main ones. I would then click into the sport that I want to shoot. In this case it's netball, and within there I've got the different folders set up for the different years of the events that I've been covering. Today we're using photos from the World Cup in 2019, so I will go into 2019 because that's where I'm shooting the event. 2019, we're traveling back in time for this one. Within that folder I've got all the different events that I've shot, so in this case I would set up a new folder for the World Cup 2019. When we go into this one, I've then got all the different folders for the games that I'm shooting, so I've created a new folder here for the England v South Africa game. You'll see I always include the date in the folder name as well. I think that's really important because it will help you find photos later. And then lastly, in this folder, that's where I put all the images, so that then when I import this folder to Lightroom, it's already catalogued in Lightroom in the same place as my filing system. Now, of course, that filing system is backed up. It's on an external hard drive and other places too, but I think that's really useful, and I think it will save you time later on when you want to go back and look for photos. If someone wants to see these Netball World Cup photos, I know where they are. I go to my netball folder. I know that event was in 2019. I can then go into the event folder, find the right match that I'm after, and all the photos are right there. After I've edited these photos, I will then export them to a subfolder in that same folder. So the raw files or the large JPEGs, the unedited ones, but then also a subfolder of all the edited photos is all in that same place. So there you go. That's the system I use. It's not perfect, but if you like it, feel free to copy my idea. That is absolutely fine. Right, let's spin round into Lightroom or onto the computer so I can show you some of the other shortcuts that we've got actually in Lightroom. Let's go. Okay guys, so here we are round at the computer. Now the first in Lightroom thing that I want to show you is something which I use to navigate through the photos. A couple of different things that I do. Number one, to enable me to pick the photos that I want to work on, and another little thing that I use to categorize the photos. So let's get into Lightroom and I will show you what I mean. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I tend to do when I'm going through these photos. And of course, I've only got 5 photos here, but let's say we had a lot more. One of the things that I will do is go through the photos and use the pick function. Now that is simply the P key on your keyboard. You can go through and I might decide, right, actually I want this photo, and you see it comes up as flag as pick. And maybe I decide I want this photo, P, flag as pick. Now what that enables you to do is then you can filter. You can say filter by flagged, and it just shows you the ones that I had picked. I picked these ones earlier. Let's say I decided I don't want those. I can use keyboard shortcut U, and that will unflag them, unflag, and then again I've just got the ones which were picked. You can go back again to all of them. You can take your filter off, anything you want. I find that really useful because it enables me to go through all of the photos and I can quickly pick the ones that I want. Something else which I will do is use the color coding. Now specifically I tend to use the number keys 6, 7, 8, 9. Those correspond to different colors. The way I do it is I use key 6, which is actually red, and I'll show you that in a second. Then I use key 7, which is yellow. And normally what that will mean for me is the red ones are ones which I want immediately because I could potentially use them for social media photos during the course of the event I'm shooting. And number 7 for me will normally be like an other category, so ones that I might want during the course of the event, but I'm not necessarily going to want them for social media. So for example, I could go through these photos here. I could decide, yeah, I want this one, so I'm going to hit P, going to flag this one. Yeah, I want this one, P, going to flag this one. The next one here I might think, actually, this could work well on social media for me, so I'm going to hit 6, and that color labels it to red. I might look at this one and think, actually, I could use that for social media too. Going to hit 6. Now I'm in a situation where I can filter all the different ways that I want. I could filter by the reds. I can see those right here. That's the other thing I like about the color coding ones, is that I don't have to filter. I can see right here on the grid in front of me which ones are red. I can select that one, got it, and I'm good to go. Of course, if I want to actually filter to the images that I picked, I can do that too, and then it would just show me the ones that I had flagged. I find those little shortcuts really good just for going through and sorting out the images before you do anything with them edit-wise. Really, really useful. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is something that I find really useful for navigating my way around Lightroom. So let me show you here. Now, if we come into the development module, I often find when I'm in this module, there is a lot of stuff going on the screen. We've got the different tabs open. I've got my different preset tabs over here. Just a quick side note on my presets, guys. I have used my sports starter preset to edit these photos. You can get that absolutely free over on my website. The link is in the description below. Also over there, I have some other preset packs set up. You can look at my sports preset pack. You can look at my general Lightroom preset pack. They enable you to edit photos with one click of a button. Really worth looking at if you are trying to save yourself time in Lightroom, or even more so if you're new to Lightroom, new to editing. You will find those so useful. Right now I'm doing 10% off those as well. If you head over to the link, head to my website, use the code YTube10, you can get yourself 10% off any of those Lightroom pre-packs. Go check them out. So, as I said, there's a lot going on the screen. Now, one of the things which I quite like to do is to be able to remove some of this stuff. And this is where the tab shortcut key comes in really useful. If I hit the tab key, all of those tabs to the right and left disappear, and straight away I've got a bigger, cleaner surface area without all the distractions. If I press tab again, they come back. The other thing I can do, you'll see that pressing tab takes the two sides but leaves the bottom. If we do shift tab, that takes away everything, and then my image is filling all the space. If I hover over them, they'll come back. If I press shift tab again, they will all come back. But I find that really useful to clean up my workspace when I just want to take a moment to look at the photo. The other thing that's really handy is quite often when I'm developing, I'm not too worried about the tab on the left or the tab on the bottom, but the tab on the right, which I'm using all the time. The trouble is, because I have it slightly bigger, you can see I bring it right out wide so I can see what I'm doing. It makes the area for the photo a bit smaller. So what you can do really quick, if you hit F8 on your keyboard, it will just make that right tab disappear and my image is a lot bigger. I can hover and it will come back in, I can hover away and it disappears, or I can just press F8 and it comes back again as well. I find that really, really useful. Takes the development tab out of the way, gives me more room here to work on my photo. F8 and it is straight back. So those are just a couple of the quick shortcut keys that I used just to navigate my way around the development module. Right, now let's get into some actual shortcuts to do with editing itself. So first up, a function that pretty much every photographer will use at some point. I probably use it on almost all of my photos, and that is just to give a quick crop to make sure your photo is set up as well as you want it. Now, actually, this photo is cropped fairly well, but we're going to say I want to crop it anyway. Now, rather than clicking up here, coming to your crop mode, press done, the thing you can do, one click of a button, you can press the R key on your keyboard and straight away that brings you to the crop mode. If you press R again, it disappears. It saves you clicking up here to the crop, clicking done, R, comes on, comes off, crop mode straight away. Other thing you can do, if you go into the crop mode, of course, you can change the photo. We can crop it down however we want to. We can get it just right. But the other thing you might want to do is to maintain the same aspect ratio. So when you're in crop mode, if you hit the shortcut key A, that will then constrain the aspect ratio so that when you crop this photo, it does not let you change the aspect ratio anymore. If I hit A for a second time, it turns it off and suddenly I've then got the free crop here. If I press A again, it maintains that same aspect ratio. Something really, really handy. So let's say we're going to keep the same aspect ratio. We're going to crop the photo about where I want it, probably there. Hit R, and we are back to the standard look of the image in the development module. I find this little shortcut really easy, on and off, gets you in and out of the crop mode without taking loads of time, especially if you're working through a lot of photos, having to do lots of crops, it saves you a ton of time. Okay, the next thing I like to do is how I work with the sliders in Lightroom. I find for a bit of accuracy and so that I can just concentrate on looking at my image, I use shortcut keys to move the sliders. Now this one is really easy. I will pick the slider I want to work on. So let's say, for example, for this image right here, we're just going to play with the exposure slider. I come over here to the exposure slider, literally just click on that one slider there, and then you can use the arrow keys. Now, if you move the arrow keys up and down, you will see it then changes the exposure of that photo in small increments. Now I like that because it means that I can just concentrate on the photo. I don't have any risk of like slipping a bit too far with my mouse and bringing it back and trying to get it exactly where it was. Click on the slider, use the arrow keys until I'm happy with where I want the exposure to be, and then I carry on with my edit. I can then come down here, I can decide I want to bring up the shadows a bit, just click on shadows, and then I can use my cursor keys just to get those shadows where I want them to be. I find that one really good. For me, it just helps me to be more accurate with the small adjustments that I'm making. So I use those cursor keys loads when I'm using the sliders in Lightroom. And the last one I want to show you, really, really simple, but it is just how you export photos nice and quick. The way I do it, once I've got the photos selected that I want to export, for me, let's pretend it was the two red photos. All you do is you hit Control-Shift-E, and that brings you straight to the export module. That saves a ton of time, right? Now, it might sound silly. Yeah, you can export just by going up here and finding it in the menu. But when you're in a rush, and especially you guys who are out there shooting sports, or maybe the side of an event and you're sending images quick, to be able to do Control-Shift-E, and that is straight up here and I can export, bang, bang, done. It saves me time, and saving time is the whole idea of these shortcut keys. Now, some of them will only save you maybe half a second, but those half a seconds add up when you're editing 100 photos over and over. Using all those different shortcuts and becoming familiar with them will save you a ton of time. Right, that's about it. Let's spin back round and we will round off this video. Okay, cool. And that is us just about done. That's some of the shortcuts that I use when I'm editing photos in Lightroom. I hope you found those useful. If you did, do me a favor. If you got any kind of use from the video at all, hit the like button. It's like a simple way to say thank you to me for taking the time to make a video. Hopefully you appreciate me doing that. If you don't, fair enough. Be mean to me. Don't hit the like button. But whether you hit the like button or not, make sure you subscribe because that just makes sense. We've got loads of other videos still to come in the future. If you guys have got other Lightroom shortcuts that you really like and you think are useful for people, perhaps ones I have not mentioned today, stick them in the comments below. It's always useful to see other people's systems and the things that they use to edit their photos and save time. In the meantime, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to see you on the next video.